How you guys doing? What's going on? Old Dog Anti-Imperial to Chill here. One name, three personalities. Old Dog Anti-Imperial to Chill. So, a female reached out to me and she was asking me, how does she know, like, how would she know if a guy really liked her? And this is kind of like, you know, it's something that can go across the board. It just doesn't have to be how a female would know or how a male would know or whatever. Um, and this would be just the first part. I'll do this in like different parts and stuff like that or whatever. And if you guys want to reach out to me, the best way to do it is DM me at anti_imperial. Don't forget that underscore at anti_imperial, Instagram, TikTok, or Patreon. Um, you know, the easiest way, or the first way, or one way I should say, that to know if somebody really likes you for you is that they'll do things that are special for you, or that are particular for you, or that are particular to you, And just to give a couple of examples, you guys. One time I was with this girl, and she was from like the Caribbean islands. I'm not going to say what island exactly or whatever, but I'm not going to say her name or anything like that either. But and if you guys know anybody that lives in like the Caribbean islands, like, or the Caribbean islands, however you want to pronounce it, they're really proud about like their culture and their history. They have a lot of cultural pride. People that are from the islands or whatever. And so she was really like that. She was like, my island and da 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 da. And all she would do was talk about her island, right? So what I did was and you guys know I'm all about like history and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys know, but that's the anti-imperial aspect of me. You guys know how I always say one name, three personalities, old dog, anti-imperial the chill, with the anti-imperial. That's all about world history, geographical studies, micro and macroeconomics, philosophy, psychology, sociology, physiology, and things like that. That's anti-imperial, right? That's that side of me. And so me learning history and stuff is something I love to do anyway. And so I did. And what I did was I went and kind of researched like the history of like her country. I researched the history of like, when slavery like left her country, how her people were emancipated from the British and the French, and the history of like her presidents and stuff like that, and her prime ministers, and the socio-economic history, and like the history of like the psychological impacts of like discrimination and racism on her island and things like that. So I started to educate myself about all the things about her island, the history of her country. And so I remember it was like a Saturday or Sunday, it might have been a Saturday, and one of her like aunts was having like a party at her house. And at this point, we had been talking maybe like a week or something like that. And she wanted to take me and introduce me to like her family and stuff like that. Her mom and her grandmother was there. It was all like at her aunt's house. Her aunt was having a party, and her cousins, and they had reggae music playing. Island party. And so her whole family was there. She has a huge family, and I remember when I went there, and she was kind of, she was showing me off and stuff like that to her family members and her sisters and her female cousins and nieces and all type of stuff. But I also remember that she was also like, real big and proud of like, just like, this is how we do it and da 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 da. And you're not nervous, are you? I was like, no, I'm not nervous. What am I nervous about? And so I remember that she was like, yeah, da, 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 this is my country, man. This is my family. This is how we do it in my country, and da da da. And I remember, and then I chimed in. I was like, yeah, I was like, because in your country, you guys didn't really get your freedom until, like the year 1814 or whatever the year was or whatever. I think it was 1814. And she kind of looked at me, and then like her mom, that caught her mom and her grandmother's attention. They kind of looked at me, and her mom was like, "Oh, I like him." Da, da, da. And her grandmother was like, "Oh, I like this one." Whatever, whatever, whatever. And for the rest of the night, I was more talking to like her mom and her grandmother. We were talking about like the history of her country, and her grandmother was like, "Oh, I remember when Prime Minister so and so came into office. I thought he was going to be good, but he was really bad." And we were talking about, I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "I heard when he came into office back in like the 1970s, like everybody thought he was going to be good, but like he tore the country apart." And so they were so surprised. Even her uncles were like, "Oh man, he know everything." Like, like they were so surprised that I knew about like the history of her country. You know what I'm saying? And so that really showed her family that like, oh, he's not here and he's not around just because he wants to have sex with her. He's around because he actually cares and he's interested in her as a person and everything about her. So when somebody likes you and they really like you, one way you can tell is that they'll remember things about you and they'll talk about things that they know are of interest to you, right? I'll give a couple more examples and that'll be it. Another example, just on the flip side, a girl and how I found out she was, and how I could tell she was really interested in me. And so, I'm tired, you guys. It's so early in the morning here. I'm so tired. And so, I was with this female and I wasn't with her for long. And, she kind of knew that, or I think she remembered that I mentioned that, my dad's African American, my dad's Black, my mom's Native American. And so she was somewhere and she was like, she called me and was like, hey, can I come see you real quick? I was like, yeah, no problem. She was like, I just want to drop something off. I was like, okay. And she came and she dropped off to me a dream catcher, right? You guys know a dream catcher. And you guys know in the Native American culture, dream catchers are pretty, prevalent. So she brought me a dream catcher. She was like, yeah, I was at this event and they had these and they were selling them. And I thought about you, because of your Native American culture and stuff like that. And so, just something small like that, that showed me that, she was invested in me and she cared about me, because she was interested in me as a person, as an individual, right? And, people you can tell when somebody's interested. It doesn't always have to be financial or like they buy you something or things like that. Like I gave the first example about, just knowing like, I learned, I taught myself the history of that girl's country, that girl's Caribbean country, Caribbean nation. So you'll just find that they're interested in things about you. I'll give this one last example and that'll be it. One time I was talking to this female, beautiful female, and just for a side note, that Caribbean girl was beautiful. Like she was gorgeous. She was like dark, silky smooth, dark black skin, and she had like some hazel green eyes. And so she was just absolutely amazingly gorgeous, or whatever. And that leads me to the last thing, example I'm going to give. There was this other female, and she lived over there in Miami, in the United States, and she was beautiful also. Body was beautiful. She used to run track, athletic body, beautiful body. And she came from like, I believe it was like Oklahoma, I want to say, like in the hood in Oklahoma or something like that. But anyway, this girl's like super like, thugged out, hood girl, you know what I'm saying? Super tough, always fighting, always beating people up and things like that. But I remember like our first conversation that we had. And I remember her saying that, and our first conversation was face to face. It was like, she was like, not face to face, but she was sitting like next to me or whatever in our first conversation. She was sitting like right next to me. And I remember she was talking about how she was like 10 years old and it was her sister and her mom. They lived in like Oklahoma. I want to say it was Oklahoma. And she was 10 years old and she used to beat people up all the time, right? Oh, I'm so tired. She used to beat people up all the time. And not because she was a bully. She wasn't a bully. Like people would pick on her and pick on her sister, her little sister and things like that. And so I remember she said she beat up this girl for like picking on her sister. And she was 10 years old. And I remember that she said that the girl that night, so she went to school that morning. It was crazy. It's a crazy situation because she went to school that morning, minding her own business, whatever. The girl started picking on her sister or whatever. She beat the girl up. And that girl had a huge family in Oklahoma. I just want to say Oklahoma. I think that's where it was. And this girl had a huge family. Like all her family, the girl that she beat up, all her family was from there, right? And so that night, the girl that I was talking to, the girl that she beat up, that girl showed up at her house with like all her family that lived in Oklahoma, all her cousins and aunts and uncles and everything, right? And they shot up the girl I was talking to, they shot up her house and they broke all the windows out of her house. They like started a fire in one of the bedrooms in that house. And the girl I was talking to, she was 10 years old. She said she was telling me the story in retrospect, right? So she was saying like when this happened, she was 10 years old, and it was just her at 10 years old, her little sister and her mom. And when the girl that she beat up, when that girl's whole family did that to her house, her mom was so scared. Her mom was like, "We're leaving tonight. Just grab whatever you can." And they left that night and drove all the way down to Miami because she had an aunt that lived in Miami. And so I remember her telling me that. And so when she was telling me that, like she wasn't crying or anything like that, but I could see the pain, like right behind her eyes. And so I could tell like that was really like big and like a turning point, like, you know, a really big moment in her life. And so some of you guys know I write music and stuff like that. So I was writing a song for an artist in France, I think it was. I think it was in France or Spain. And I kind of put a line in there about that, about what she told me. And so one day I was chilling with her and I let her hear the song and she heard the line. And she started to cry. And this girl was super tough. Hood girl, beautiful, but hood. I'm talking about hood, thug out. She was thugged out, right? Thug life to the fullest. And she started kind of crying. Not like boohoo crying, but like the tears started to whelp up and like you could see them drop and like she kind of wiped them away a little bit. And she was like, "Man, I didn't think you were listening when I was telling you about that." I said, "Yeah, I was listening." I said, "I could tell it was like a really important moment in your life, you know?" And she was like, "Man, you know, I usually mess with like, you know, gangsters and thug niggas and you know what I'm saying?" And she was like, "I never had anybody like really care about like my feelings, you know?" And, you know, we didn't last, but to this day, as a matter of fact, you know, what makes me think about the story is because she texted me like maybe 2 days ago. I haven't texted her back, but she texted me a couple of days ago. But to this day, because of like just that, she's like, "Man, you know what? Like you're the only person that's ever really cared about me." And she's like, "I always love you. And I'm always gonna be here if you ever want me." She always tells me that. And she's beautiful. She's still beautiful, you know. So you'll know that somebody likes you because they'll really pay attention to what you say and they'll really remember it and they'll really like kind of like always be there for you because of those reasons. You know? They'll listen to you. If you say you like a certain thing, it could be like you know, you could say, "Hey, yeah, so man, you know, I haven't had a vanilla milkshake in a long time." I remember sometimes there would be girls that be like, "Man, you know what? Damn, you know what I haven't had in a long time? I haven't had some crab legs. This, and that." I'd be like, "Oh yeah?" And I just keep going, like, just keep having the conversation. Or, "Man, I haven't had a vanilla milkshake in a long time." I'd be like, "Oh." I wouldn't even say nothing. I'd just be like, next thing you know, like, I'd be like, "Hey, I gotta go do something real quick. I'm gonna call you back." She'd be like, "All right." Next thing she knows, like an hour later, I'm knocking on her front door with like a vanilla milkshake or crab legs. You know what I'm saying? And so when people know that you're listening to them, like it really means something to them. And that's how you'll know that they really care about you for who you are and not because they just want to have sex with you or something like that, you know? They'll really pay attention to the details of your life and the details of what's important to you. All right? So make sure they pay attention to the details about you, and that's how you'll know. That's one indication of how you'll know if they really like you for you, okay? Or if they just want to have sex with you, all right? They'll value who you are as a person, okay? All right, you guys. You guys take care. Have a great day or great night, depending on where you are in the world. Check out my video right there. All right, you guys, take care. All right, have a good day or good night, depending on where you are in the world. Love you guys. You guys take care. All right, peace. Bye-bye.